into it, into the secret. It's not there's no secret, but it is there inside. We have to just get into it, then we can know. How? Just think of that Vasudeva. Hari Om Vasudeva. Hari Om no mitrasyam varunah Vasudeva. Syam no bhavatvaryama Syam na indro bruhaspatihi Syam no vishnururukramah Namo brahmane namaste vayo Tvameva pratyaksham brahmasi Tvameva pratyaksham brahma vadishyami Ratam vadishyami Satyam vadishyami Tanmamavatu Tad vaktaramavatu Avatu mam Avatu vaktaram Om Shanti 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 Pratya paschatya deshanam samanvaya vidhayakam Shantam saumya gunopetam krishnam vande jagadgurum Sarva vedartha tattvajnam vedartha pratipadakam Purana sara sarvajnam krishnam vande jagadgurum Om asmad gurubhyo namaha. So welcome to all of you after 2 weeks. So we have been studying aphorism 27. So this aphorism 27 is a very special aphorism because here Patanjali has given the secret how we can call forth Ishvara, the Lord Indweller, how we can contact him, how we can call him forth. So this secret he has given in this aphorism 27. So here he said, Tasya vachakaha pranavaha. That means, how can we call him, the Lord Indweller, by what name? So he said, you can call him by uttering Om, because his name is Pranava, Om. Pranava means Om, the sound. So let us call him by uttering Om. Here what he said in this aphorism is that Om is twofold. It serves two purposes here in this context. One is that when we want to call Ishvara, because he is there as indweller in us, He is there everywhere, so also He is there in us. So for everyone it is possible to contact Him, to call Him within himself. Because he is there inside himself. But by what name we can call him? So by uttering Om, because uttering Om, the sound Om is the call to Ishvara. At the same time, this Om is, the sound Om is also the call from Ishvara to us. Both. Because when we utter Om, then we feel that we are calling Ishvara to contact him. That means we are knocking at his door. Of course, his door is always open. He never closes his door. He is always open, he is always ready. Only we have to get into contact with him. Anytime he is ready. So here, calling forth is, we call, by uttering Om, we call him, his name. And also at the same time, what is happening is, from the other side, from himself, from the Lord, he is calling forth every one of us from within. How? By Om itself. So Om, the sound, it is the link between the person and the Lord. The individual person and the Lord, it is the link between them. So utterance of Om is so important. How can we understand that he also calls us through Om? When we utter Om, that means we are calling him by his name. His name is Om. But when we are uttering, he also is uttering. How can we know that? There we have to go into it, into the secret. It's not there is no secret, but it is there inside. We have to just get into it, then we can know. How? Just think of that, how we are able to utter. We are uttering Om, but how you are able to utter? Only because he uttered forth from within ourselves. And because of that, when he uttered forth, he called us. And this has induced us to utter. Unless he utters from within ourselves, we can not utter any word. Only when he utters, when he calls forth, then we are able to utter because of him, because of his utterance. So that is how the Lord indweller always utters Om to call us, and because of that we are induced to utter Om to call Him. Therefore, this Om or Pranava is the link between the individual and the Lord. That is how we have to understand this. So Pranava means Om, the sound Om. So all this is because in the previous aphorisms, Patanjali said that we have to make a total surrender to the Lord consciousness. Surrender what I have to surrender what I have to surrender to what I am. What I have is to be surrendered to what I am. So what I am is the Lord. What I have is all other things which we feel they belong to us. Everything, the belongings, all the belongings, they are covered under what I have. So total surrender of what I have to what I am, the Lord. So that is what he said. We can attain that state of vairagya and attain samadhi by making a total surrender to the Lord, the indweller. But before we want to make a surrender, we have to contact Him, we have to call Him by name. Then he said, you can contact Him, you can call Him by uttering Om, Pranava. When we are uttering Om, through this utterance, while we are uttering, we have to hear that sound. We have to listen to it. While doing so, we can enter into that. That means consciously we will be present into that sound which we utter as Om. So what is the speciality of this sound Om? It's one letter, one sound, Om. So what is the speciality of this? Why not other sounds? Because there are many other sounds also. But why? There is so this is the sound which can establish a contact between us and between the Lord. So this is that sound. That is why only Om is recommended to call, because in all the scriptures it is given very confirmed, in a confirmed manner. So first of all, we have to utter this through our voice. It is not silent utterance. We have uttered it forth through our voice, using our voice. and also at the same time we have to listen to it. So this is the first step which is explained in this process. So therefore, we have to allot a special time, a specific time every day, not changing time from one day to other. It should be a constant, a specific time. And keeping this time, we have to select a place where we have to sit down, completely relaxing our body, close the eyes, observe the whole of the body. If there are no blockages, no tension of any nerve anywhere. So we have to, without any tension, without any that means completely we should be relaxed. We should not make any sort of stress or attention. So all the time you have to keep uttering Om and listening. Then we will realize that what we are uttering is His name only. Later, as we keep uttering Om and try to call Him, we will realize that the call from Ishvara also is to the same sound. So this establishes a communion between the individual and the Lord in us. This communion is possible only while you are uttering Om. This we have to remember. When you stop uttering Om, this communion stops. This is very, very important. The Lord indweller is there within ourselves, within everybody. So we want to get into contact with Him. For that purpose, we have to keep uttering the sound Om and listening to it continuously. And it establishes a communion between the Lord, the indweller, and the individual who utters this, who practices this. So this communion between the Lord, indweller, and the individual who utters forth, this communion will be there only while you are uttering vocally and listening to the sound. When you stop uttering, communion stops. This is very, very clear, as explained by all the seers, rishis. Why then there may be some questions arise in our mind. Why the communion stops when we stop uttering Om? Because we have uttered Om, then we got into communion with the Lord. But this communion stops when we stop uttering. Why should it happen like that? That is a question. Because we have already uttered, communion is established. When once established, it to continue whether we utter or not. No, not like that. This is you know, this we have to keep observing and keep repeating always. What is that utterance of Om and listening to it is the fundamental step which is very important, very needed for us if you want to be in communion with the Lord. It is just like how sometimes a question may arise, when the Lord is there present always, why this communion should stop when we stop uttering? Because we cannot keep uttering the whole day, all the time. We are engaged in several tasks, several works. So how can we remember? How can we constantly keep uttering Om? That is the riddle. It should be convenient if we start uttering and got into communion, it should continue whether we utter or not, but it is not like that here. For example, when we have an electrical installation, switch and plug and all these things, we have arranged a light to glow. So this glow of the light will be present as long as it is plugged in. When we unplug this stops. In the same manner, as long as you are uttering Om and listening to it, you are continuing. You are in the communion. But when you stop uttering, then it stops. You are no more in communion. So if you want to be in communion with God or the Lord, indweller, you have to keep uttering Om and listening to it. While we are sleeping, we do not. How can we remember and how can we continue to utter Om while we are sleeping, for example? We are sleeping, but He never sleeps in us. He never sleeps. He doesn't sleep at all. We need to sleep. That is true. So therefore, he doesn't stop to utter. He keeps uttering in us. So only thing is, he never stops, he never sleeps. He is there in us as indweller, but we sleep, we get into sleep, we start uttering. Then, after some years of practice, that means repetition, repeating, then we will realize that while we are uttering his name, that means Om, then only we get into the awareness of his presence, awareness of everything. When we stop uttering, that the awareness is not there. The only thing is we have to keep repeating, we have to practice repeating the utterance of Om. So if we follow this path and when we try to utter forth his name, it means Om, with full awareness, then within a very short time we get into that experience, that communion. We can experience that communion. The communion with the Lord consciousness, we can experience it. So, what he says in Bhagavad Gita is, even a little effort what you put for this, to utter forth Om, even this little effort towards following this law, cosmic, that will protect you from a great fear, because we are always very much entangled in the fears. So we are protected from the great fear even by keeping a little effort into this direction. There is no difficulty, there is no complication in this procedure. There is only discipline. What is needed is discipline. It is not a punishment. There is no punishment. If you fail, if you could not do it also, there is no punishment. But you have to follow the discipline. And there are no much rules and regulations. The procedure is very simple. You have to select a place. What are the prerequisites? What is required to arrange, to practice this, to utter forth the name of the Lord, to call Him, is that you have to select a pure place, a clean and pure place, and then make yourself a comfortable posture where there is no tension anywhere in the body. This is also he explains further in his further aphorisms. One of these 8 steps is asana. So asana is stability. Stability in ease, that is what is called asana. So when we practice this, then our mind also gets tuned to that. So we have to select a pure place. You have to get into it exactly at the same time, because discipline is very important. You should not sit very high or very low. You have to, because it is your mind which will have the impression of high and low. So that is to be eliminated. So therefore, you have to select a position to sit, not too high, not too low, like that. And then start observing your body, observing every muscle, every nerve which is not tight, which is relaxed. Try to relax every part of the body by observing every part of the body. And also what is important is that you have to keep time. You have to keep, every day you have to keep the same time. It should become automatic, it should become an attitude, not by force. And what we practice in the yoga, what we practice through this procedure, it should reflect in your daily activity. That means you have to settle yourself in the awareness, into the awareness of the Lord consciousness in us. We have to get into the awareness to keep the time. For example, we are expected to meditate exactly at 6 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock in the evening, for example. So, without any effort, automatically our mind should be tuned like that, and we automatically get into the prayer exactly by the same time. And after some time, after some years, when you keep practicing like this, then your whole life should be a part of the yoga. So whatever we do the whole day should be in that yogic attitude. That is the goal of our practicing yoga. It is not just enough if you do some practice in the morning, in the evening, just for 1 hour and skip away. No. So this practice during this 1 hour should extend into all your activities during the day. It is for that purpose. So we have to sit in the manner in which it is explained and prescribed, and keeping the time and keeping all the body in a relaxed condition, and then start inhalation and exhalation as long as you can without any blockage, with the same uniform speed. While doing it, you have to focus your mind on your respiration. You have to keep observing what is happening while you are doing this inside. So we have to observe how our lungs are working to make harmony in our process of breathing, inhalation and exhalation. So therefore, any of the mantras what we observe, what we utter, so out of all, the foremost mantra is Om, and foremost mantra is inhalation and exhalation, because Om is located in the process of inhalation and exhalation. So we can breathe in as long as we can without any sort of blockage, any sort of tension. So we have to unblock and you have to eliminate any tension while we are breathing. So breathe like that and make a little pause without any blockage, and then start breathing out with the same length and rhythm like inhalation. So all this time, when your mind is focused on this process of breathing, then it is called pranayama. Otherwise, if your mind is not focused there, it's not pranayama. Many people think that pranayama is only practicing inhalation and exhalation, counting the units of time. So if your mind is deviated from that process in doing all these things, then you are not in pranayama. You cannot have the real experience of it. So while you are breathing, you are making inhalation and exhalation, your mind should be focused to that without deviation. That is most important. What makes the difference? If you are breathing without your mind focused on it, and when you are breathing fully focused, your mind is fully focused on it, what makes the difference? That means it is just like when there is some good music played by a wonderful musician, and when it is recorded on a tape or a disc, so the disc which contains this music, and when you have a disc where there is nothing in the disc, so what this difference, it is similar difference what you can understand with your mind when it is absent or present while doing this process. Generally, what happens in our daily life to most of us is that our mind is focused on some work. So it is not focused on our inhalation and exhalation. Inhalation and exhalation goes on automatically. But your mind is not focused there. So therefore, we have to practice specially to keep observing while inhalation, doing exhalation, to keep observing with your mind what is happening. So with applying our will, when we start doing this, then it becomes easier and easier to us to practice this. And by practicing this like this for a long time, for some years, then it becomes very easy. This process becomes very easy. So therefore, what Patanjali said earlier, we have to apply the instrument abhyasa. Repeat the same process again and again. So we have to practice this. Unless you practice this, there is no use if you know the whole process. Knowing is not just enough unless you practice this. So when you compare, when you think of our mind, our body and senses and their activity, so we have, when we keep observing our inhalation and exhalation, then only we can feel the value of our instrument, our body. Otherwise, if your mind is not aware, if you are not aware, if your mind is not focused on breathing, then it is all out of experience. There is no experience. You cannot have an experience of it. You cannot experience it. So all the Veda, what is called Veda, will be experienced while you practice this inhalation and exhalation. So all this is possible only while your breathing is continuing under observation. So therefore, everything what is required is in the utterance of Om. And this constant practice leads us to have this awareness continued all the time. In listening and uttering of this Om. So this practice is very important for us to have the communion with the Lord indweller. So what is happening with our inhalation and exhalation is generally there are two aspects which we have to observe in this process of respiration. One is the inhalation which we intentionally make. That means when we remember that we are inhaling and exhaling, that we are making respiration, that is one. And there is another which is involuntary. So you know, this process of respiration is semi-voluntary in us. You know, in our whole constitution, there are many nadis which are responsible for all our activity of the body. And it is identified that there are three types of nadis. Three categories of nadis. One category is that one which is voluntary. That means if we want, we can use it. If we don't want, we don't use it. For example, I want to move my hand like this at will, so I will move. If I don't feel I will move, I will not move. That means the nadis which is responsible to move this hand, these nadis are voluntary nadis. And there are another category of nadis which are semi-voluntary. That means to some extent they are voluntary, to some extent they are involuntary. For example, our inhalation and exhalation. If we want to hold our breath for some time, we can hold it. But we cannot hold beyond certain time. You can, all these things you can experiment and realize. Suppose I want to hold my breath, make an inhalation and hold it for some time. You can hold it for some time only. Beyond certain time, beyond certain limit, you cannot hold it. That is why it is semi-voluntary nadis that are working for this. Semi-voluntary. To certain extent only, it is voluntary. You can say, oh, I can make my exhalation and inhalation myself. Yes, you can. But until certain limit, beyond certain limit, you cannot do it by yourself. It will be involuntary. The third category of nadis are totally involuntary. For example, heartbeat. All the time our heart is pumping, and which we call heartbeat. That is totally involuntary. Otherwise we cannot exist. If nature keeps these nadis also semi-involuntary or voluntary, what happens? We are so that we want to make our heart will be waiting for us to allow it to make beating. Meanwhile, our mind is engaged in some other direction. We forget to use this, and then the heart stops. So therefore, working of the heart is totally involuntary. Working of the brain, all the vitals, important things are governed by nadis which are totally involuntary. They work automatically. So here, regarding this process of respiration, that means inhalation and exhalation, so there is one is voluntary respiration and the other is involuntary respiration. So one is by our conscious effort, that is voluntary, and other is which is continuing without any conscious effort from us. It is continuing all the time. So this is called the respiration. There are two words, breath and respiration. Breath is the one which we can use voluntarily. If you want, you can breathe. If you want, you can stop. That is why it is voluntary. But respiration, the process of respiration is totally involuntary. It goes on continuing without any our interference also. It goes on. So it is a pulsation. The respiration is a double pulsation, inhalation and exhalation. So this pulsation makes inhalation and exhalation. Inhalation and exhalation are the result of our pulsation. So what is called pranayama is to regulate this activity It is not controlling the breath, but it is regulating the pulsation which is responsible for our inhalation and exhalation. So therefore it is what is this process is what is there explained in the Bhagavad Gita and also in the Yoga of Patanjali, both. So this process of the process of practicing this respiration like this, we have discussed earlier also, and we have been practicing this together for many years. You know, when we are together in the yoga living or seminar, what we have been practicing every morning is pranayama. That is the process which is prescribed and which is explained in Bhagavad Gita and in Yoga of Patanjali. So completely it should get regularized by uttering it and observing and listening and observing the whole process. So therefore, this scientific process of pranayama, when it is going on, when we are doing this process, the whole thing is that you have to utter, you have to listen to it, this sound. This is most important. And also this perfection in this pranayama will be there only when you can maintain regularly the time of practice. That is very important. Then what happens is this will reflect, all this process will reflect in all the activity during the whole day. So Master Jwalkul has explained this process as the art of breathing, which you find in the books of Alice Bailey. He has explained this process very clearly. So therefore this aphorism, tasya vachakah pranavaha, this aphorism is so important for us because it deals with the very important step in our practice. So the utterance of the Lord is called pranava. That is what is the meaning of this. So this utterance while we are uttering, we have to start observing from where this sound is coming, from where it is emerging, how. When we utter pranava, when we utter Om, what we have to observe is from where and how this sound is emerging. Is it that we are uttering out this Omkar, this Pranava, Om, but it is still far deeper. It is coming from within. The whole process of respiration, when we practice like this, we will realize that this utterance of Om is coming from deeper consciousness. So the impulse to utter is responsible. Where from this impulse is coming? We got a proposal, an impulse to utter Om. So where from this impulse is coming? It is not under our control. Generally we think that, we proposed that, we ourselves proposed and therefore we started to utter. But never, it is never like that. If it is our own proposal, consciously, then why you have not proposed before? So that itself shows that the proposal is coming from somewhere else deeper. It means from the Lord Himself. So this is a matter of experience, but not a matter of belief. Here, in this process of uttering forth Om and calling the indweller, it is the matter of experience, practice and experience, no question of belief. So what we can realize is, regarding this process of respiration, 50% of that is that which we utter, that means with our effort, and another 50% is that is being uttered forth from within without our effort. Because the impulse to utter, it is coming from deeper layers, and through the mind, our mind has received this and and brought it forward to utter. Then we use our vocal cord to utter the sound Om. So we have to realize that the utterance, the starting point of the utterance of this Om or Pranava is Ishvara only, the Lord Indweller. That is the ultimate truth. So therefore every utterance comes forth, it starts from the Lord indweller. That is what so therefore what we have to remember is the whole time when we are uttering Om, that means we are calling forth Ishvara by uttering Om. At the same time we are listening to our sound of calling by uttering Om. We have to realize that all this is because it is the Lord Himself who is responsible for this proposal which came into us to utter the sound Om. We felt like calling Him forth by uttering Om. That means this proposal has emanated, it has started from the Lord Himself. So therefore this aphorism tasya vachakah pranavaha explains us that from the very beginning of your utterance, when you start uttering Om, when you with your effort just you start uttering Om, from that time it is the Lord who continues to utter from within yourself. All the time while you are uttering, all the time He is uttering from within yourself. That is what we have to very clearly remember. We have to understand that. So for all this, we have to practice, we have to make a regular practice, abhyasa, for this whole process. The whole, as long as we are uttering, we can experience that this utterance is coming from Him. When we stop uttering, then we are disconnected. While we are uttering, we are replaced, our presence is replaced by the presence of the Lord indweller. This is the very important point, secret of all secrets. While we are uttering Om to call Him forth, when we start uttering Om, then immediately we are tuned to Him, then we can listen to Him, that it is the Lord who is uttering. Continuously He is uttering. We feel we are uttering, but He is uttering. So we can listen to the call of the Lord from within. This is what we will get through practicing, by practicing this perfectly in the manner how it is explained. What we realize is that we will be able to listen to the call of the indweller, the Lord. So the secret is that when we are, as long as we are uttering and listening to him, to the sound, then it is he who is uttering. You know why? Because when we start uttering Om, it is like switching on, to switch on, like when you want to have a glow of a light, you switch on and then light is there. So in the same manner, when you start uttering Om and listening to it, it is like switching on. When once you have switched on, it is the presence of the light. So since he is always there as the indweller in us, when you switched on, when you started utter and listen to Om, that means we have called him forth. And he is already there, because he is always there calling us from within. Then what happens? Then he will be there as long as we are uttering. So that is what is explained in this aphorism. This is because the sound Om is already there, included in our process of respiration. For everyone, for all the beings, the process of respiration has included this sound Om in it. Why? Because when we have practiced pranayama, we have realized that while inhaling, there is the operation of the sound so, and while exhaling, hum. So through this process of inhaling and exhaling, automatically this Om, this sound Om is operating, whether we know it or not, whether we are aware of it or not, it is there included naturally. So in this so and hum, the consonants s and and ha, s and ha. There are one consonant is s while we are inhaling, and while we are exhaling, in hum, ha is another consonant. They will drop off, and what remains is Om. Then when we utter Om like this, during our inhalation and exhalation, then Om remains, and Om is the form of the Lord, indweller. Om remains. So what happens is, when we start uttering Om and listening to it, then the Lord consciousness which is there, so we are absorbed into that Lord consciousness. So then the Lord only exists and we do not exist as long as we utter. When we stop uttering, then we are existing once again. And the Lord is there, but but cannot be heard because you have stopped uttering. So that is what is also implied in this. So it is explained in the scriptures that the Lord has descended into the process of respiration in the beings. He came down as the indweller, and this indweller, the Lord, enters into this process of respiration when we start uttering Om. So these two sounds, consonants S and H, they are also mantras. Om is the main mantra, and these are secondary mantras. All these are there in our inhalation and exhalation. That is wonderful thing. We are not aware of that before. Since now we have entered into practice of yoga, we get into this awareness. But without this, all these mantras are operating in our process of respiration, but we are not aware of that. So therefore, this process of uttering of Om is the most important aspect in our existence. That is what we have to know. So therefore we have to get into practicing with our respiration in this most scientific manner, not because there are so many people who prescribe their own processes, their own way of respiration, all these things, but what is explained by Patanjali and Lord in Bhagavad Gita, that is most authentic, because they are according to the scriptures, what we find in them. What happens when we start practicing is that when we focus our mind on our respiration and start uttering the sound Om, then our mind is also focused there on the process. So our mind and our sense, our hearing and pulsations, all these things have come together nearer and nearer to the Lord consciousness in us. Then the one who utters this Om through our voice, he is called Ishvara. So when we keep practicing this for a long time, what happens that most of the part of our life is illuminated by the presence of the Lord consciousness in us. Before entering the practice of yoga, it is only we are there. Our existence is there, and existence of the Lord. Lord is always there as indweller, but He is not allowed to be active. So that is what you see. That is what we can experience. So therefore, it is in this process, when we, for a long time, we keep practicing this, then we can attain the state where most of the part of our life, majority of the part of our life, we have allowed the Lord to express. The indweller, the Lord, will be allowed to express, allowed to utter, and His presence is always there, and the presence of our individual is reduced and the presence of the Lord will be increased. So this is what we get, this is what we can experience by uttering the name of the Lord, which is explained in this aphorism. So the utterance of the Lord can be experienced, and we live in the presence of the Lord by uttering, by practicing this type of pranayama, this type of process. That is what is explained in this aphorism. So this aphorism is so important because again and again we have to study this aphorism, and we have to try to contemplate upon this, because this aphorism it gives a key point for us in our yoga practice and your yogic attainment of yogic state. This aphorism gives us the main key. So utterance of Om and listening to Om and utterance of Om, this establishes the link, communion between us and the Lord in us. So this forms the main key of this. Now we pass on to aphorism 28, the next aphorism. Tad japaha tadardha bhavanam. In this, what the Lord says, tat japaha. Japaha means silent repetition. The silent repetition, that is called japaha. Artha bhavanam. Artha means import. Bhavana means absorption. Leads to a process of absorption through the path of import. Contemplation. What is contemplation? Contemplation is a process of linking the lower mind with the consciousness that is conducting the respiration. That is contemplation. We know this word contemplation, but exact meaning of this is that contemplation is the process of linking the lower mind with the consciousness that is conducting the respiration. So, respiration is conducted by the conscious mind. It should be clearly distinguished from the process of concentration. Different. Contemplation is different from concentration. So there should be no confusion between these two. it should be clearly distinguished from the process of concentration. Concentration is trying to focus the mind on the same mental plane, which leads to an attempt towards an impossibility. Generally, people think that we have to concentrate our mind. They think like that and they try to concentrate the mind. And ultimately, we will realize that it is impossible. It is an impossible process to concentrate. So, concentration is trying to focus the mind on the same mental plane, which leads to an attempt towards an impossibility and belongs to the lower nature of man. Concentration keeps on the lower strata of mind. So that will not allow you to get nearer and nearer to the inner consciousness. So contemplation is different from concentration. It finally creates the sense of defeat. Concentration finally creates the sense of defeat due to its impossibility, and hence should be avoided by a student of yoga. Most of the students of yoga, and in many books of yoga, you find that we have to concentrate, but absolutely that is a process which leads you to defeat, because it is impossible. You see, in Bhagavad Gita also, Arjuna poses a question to the Lord that, my Lord, you are always instructing me to have a control on the senses and mind, but I find it's impossible to control the mind because I am not able to concentrate. The more I try to concentrate the mind, the more it goes hither and thither. It is impossible to have a control on the mind. Then how is it possible? So concentration is a wrong process. But unfortunately, most of the students of yoga, they are on the wrong path, they are misled, and therefore they try to concentrate, they try to practice concentrate, but practice of yoga, concentration is completely, it's a wrong process. It does not lead to yoga. So a student of yoga should avoid the process of concentration. Contemplation is the art of linking the lower mind to the automatic activity of the higher consciousness, manifesting as pulsation through the respiration. So linking the lower to the higher consciousness, that is contemplation. So completely different from concentration. Thinking about the process of respiration constantly leads to the import of this sacred word Om. Then it leads up to the delicate process of the mind being absorbed into the spiritual man. So it is a very delicate process. This shows the path which cannot be found by any books except the scriptures. So that is about this aphorism. So tat japaha, japa. So this aphorism is a continuation of the study of the process from the previous aphorism. So we have more explanation we have to make regarding this aphorism also, that we will continue in our next class. Thank you all. Swasti prajabhyah paripalayantam न्याय्येन मार्गेण महिं महिषाः गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः शुभमस्तु नित्यं लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु लोकाः समस्ताः सुखिनो भवन्तु ओम शांति 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 वासुदेव।